Hail, great Scott, where am I? I seem to have gone back to the future. Excuse me, who's the president? JonTron? Yeah, right. Who's vice president? Scott the was?
I want to start by saying there's a flashing lights warning at the beginning of this game. So for those who are sensitive to that sort of thing, just let the audio run.
Audio.
Go do some taxes or put up a shelf while listening.
Now, when installing these guys, it's always better to...
Platinum Games is a developer that has the philosophy of aiming to make unique and new IPs. They were founded in 2007 and had Sega announcing they will publish 4 games for them, one of them being one of the most beloved games ever, Bayonetta. One of the others I had never heard of called Infinite Space. From the trailer it looks like Star Fox meets Phoenix Wright. I'm joking, I actually have no idea how to explain it. Also, get used to those theoretical collaborations because guess what? There's many more to come. Another one of these games being a brutal cel-shaded black and white hack and slash called Mad World. Then, of course, Vanquish.
That was easier than expected. That big piece of work won't be.
They later added another title to their collaboration, which looks as if they took the 4 previous games and made a concoction. It was a spiritual successor to their first collaboration, Mad World. Pretty much every one of these games was well received, excluding Anarchy Reigns. To see such an ambitious amount of work in such a short amount of time is admirable. It's funny to see the one game that was not well received was the one game that least followed their philosophy. You know what they say, you either die a hero or live long enough to get scolded by IGN.
Can you please use the term
And you know what they say about IGN? You can't spell anything because one of their writers stole your pen.
I'm going to make this pen disappear, and you won't be able to write your stupid review. It will be so evil.
Shinji Mikami is the director of the game, and he might sound familiar. He had a long career working with Capcom and is responsible for Resident Evil. He is the one who brought us the Capcom 5. This agreement with Sega is basically part 2 of the Capcom 5. You could call it the Capcom 5 2.0, or the Capcom we might as well call it 10.
Unlimited big.
Vanquish is a beautiful third-person shooter. It's a spectacle of a game in all the ways possible. The gameplay, the characters, the voice actors, the cutscenes, they're like Star Wars and Halo having a speed LAN party. And I don't mean a quick, let's run to the desktop and play together type of LAN party. I'm talking about a drug-induced, I don't remember developing this game sort of party. The main guy smokes with cigarettes all the time, and you'll find yourself craving a smoke, and a strategically placed bedsheet too, because the game is that hectic.
It's a little bit smoky here, but don't worry, just
In Mission 1, a 400-foot spaceship crashes into the platform you're on. And it happens in real time. There's no cutscene doing it. You can see one falling in the distance and you're thinking, that's pretty cool. That is actually coming towards me. I better run. The gameplay is like Mega Man X meets G.I. Joe, or Iron Man meets Gears of War, or Halo meets Ninja Gaiden, or Super Metroid meets Gunstar Heroes, or Metroid Other M meets Gundam. Other M, don't worry, no game will ever be able to touch you. And if they try, I will take their manual out, rip it to shreds, and scratch their CD beyond repair. Or Binary Domain meets Haze. Okay, I'm done. No more. That last one was a joke, by the way. Even though these are all pretty good ideas, honestly, I'm smashing like on that one. It's that good. Vanquish's standout mechanic is the slide. By pressing the left bumper, the character will slide across the floor, the perspective gets distorted, motion blur all over the place like I'm in a Formula 1 vehicle, the character's knees are in worse state than a mechanic's monkey wrench. As I said, it's a very hectic game and there's a lot going on at all times. And the tutorial compensates for this by making it a very loud car. I mean, it makes a very long, comprehensive tutorial for you to play. You're like, oh my god, how many parts to this? The tutorials are here like Harry Potter books. But if it wasn't for all the original concepts, it would just be a regular third-person shooter, set in a theme of Ghost in a Shell, so the tutorial makes sense. So the suit that your character has this thing called AR mode, and when you completely use up the AR bar, the suit will overheat, and when it overheats it plays this animation like it's pushing out steam, flames come out. It's really cool. 3 things take up the AR meter. That's the slide-in, melee attacks, and the slow motion focus in bullet time. When it overheats you have a cooldown like in an RPG. This is because these are the most dominating moves in battle, and they don't want you to overuse them. It's a pretty smart way to make a balanced game. The slide can be used to get away from encounters, or to quickly dart into battle and get the upper hand on an enemy, especially big ones with sensitive points on their back. Each weapon has an independent melee attack, so you pick up a shotgun, it does one, you pick up a heavy machine gun, it does another, the sniper rifle, and so on and so forth. You could say it's like The Last of Us meets Ghost in a Shell.
Falcon Punch!
When you use the melee attack, it will put you at a disadvantage, especially in multiple enemy combat, because this uses up your AR meter, and you can pretty much only attack one enemy. For that reason, I never really got used to the melee. It looks really cool, especially the machine gun one. He's out here punching like Fist of the North Star. You could say it's like Fist of the North Star meets Jet Force Gemini. A nice touch I like is the way your character throws a grenade. It's like he's an American football player. Or that Banksy picture where the guy throws the flowers.
Hey, I'm not saying I know who Banksy is. I'm just saying he might have taken inspiration from this game.
The voiceover of the main guy, it sounds like Goku doing an impression of Vegeta. But he ends up sounding more like Solid Snake. And he's less Escape from New York and more Escape from Fiverr. I'm just kidding. Like, there's no criticism for the voice actors. They all do a great job.
Not even scratched. You did get some training in this thing, right?
Our simulators are very thorough. They did quite a number on you, huh? We could use you as a test subject at DARPA.
My only criticism would be the fact that the main 2 guys sound so similar. So similar, in fact, that I thought that the big reveal was that they were actually related. They have a dynamic that makes you think, why are they at each other's throats all the time? They're not just similar in voice, they're similar in beliefs and behavior sometimes, as well as talents. So when you slide, it uses the AR meter, but while you're doing that, you can start shooting or aim. During this time, everything moves in slow motion. During this AR mode, it's like Max Payne. Your character will slow down drastically, but this is just a time manipulation thing that's used in games for bullet time. They probably do see his reflexes enhanced exponentially. So this bullet time can be triggered manually or automatically. Manually after an evade or during a slide with aim, or automatically during critical emergency situations like near death. The suit will read your vitals and intelligently trigger it. I will admit, sometimes I felt a little bit overpowered. Not that I care, because I love being overpowered. About halfway through it, the game ramps up in difficulty. You do get comfortable with the idea that near death happens, you just quickly go and hide. But the game wants you to stay in constant action mode, so this makes total sense. It's constantly high octane intense battles because the smooth gameplay and energy system. The only downtime is the overheating, and that can only happen when you're not paying full attention. If you see your bar about to hit 0, you just disconnect. The only time you should be in overheating mode is when you're near death, and that's because you should be deliberately jumping into battles and understanding your surroundings in your suit. Something you can do is slide into cover. I know it might sound like I'm just saying something that should be obvious, but you can end up feeling like you're Spider-Man. If you know how to use the slide and cover properly, you'll be out here zipping back and forward. Look how nimble he is moving around from wall to wall. But you won't get many chances to play like this. It's just nice to know he can be like a ninja when the time comes. In Uncharted, I like that you can do blind fire, but you can't do that here. When you're behind cover and you press shoot without aiming, he'll stand up and look, and you can't manually trigger the AR mode from cover. You have to stand up, do an evade, and then trigger the AR mode. Again, the game is showing you, we don't want you in cover unless it's absolutely essential to recover from a near-death experience. As basically the life lesson. They should have put that on their philosophy in The Office. As I mentioned before, the character smokes all the time in cutscenes. He'll just pull out a cigarette, he finishes a mission, a cutscene plays, and he's having a cigarette. He don't care what no one else is doing. And this game's got this thing where if you're in cover and you press the slide button, instead of sliding, he'll smoke. It's almost like the character smoking instead of sliding in cover is like the developer's way of saying, get a new habit. Have you tried smoking? Smoking is encouraged by this game. Plus, it does fit the character's profile so well. So why not have a puff?
My guy, you're smoking too much, and them things are expensive. And the top off, you take one puff and then throw it. This is why you can't afford a proper cooling system for your suit.
The game sort of scolds you in the briefing for all your actions, including cover. It's like, yeah, you did do pretty well in these pots, but you also spent 20% of your time in cover. It's like when a day trader says, sleeping is for the dead. No, sleeping is actually essential for all humans.
C4C, covers for cowards. If you're finding yourself needing to cover, then you're a coward. C4C, just remember that the next time you're on the battlefield. Would I rather die with honor or protect myself behind a wall and stay alive like a coward?
It's a game that tells you from the get-go, get straight into battle and get it done. The first gunfight you have is to get behind enemies and destroy them. Not cover from a distance and play blow for blow. Dive headlong into battle, no, slide headlong into battle and destroy these guys where it hurts. Right in the back of the head.
If you go there, you should be able to flank the enemy from behind.
On it. Good. Move on through.
You can even use enemy mech warriors and gun turrets. They have limited ammo because the game wants you to stay on the move. It's very arcadey inspired. There are a few times in the game where you are encouraged to use a gun turret, but of the nearly 6 hours of total game time, this is maybe 3 or 4 minutes at most. It might sound like a lot, but when 45 minutes of your time is spent in cover, you might realize, you know what? Day traders are right. You can recover injured teammates by going up to them and pressing the action button. When you do this, they'll drop either ammo or an upgrade, and you can choose which gun you want to put the upgrade on, and they're permanent, even when you replace weapons on the battlefield.
And this makes a lot of sense considering the system that is used within the suit. It has memories and remembers details from the weapons you've picked up. It remembers everything about them, including nicks and all sorts. I'll get into it in a moment, but this is all explained in the tutorial. But I feel like the tutorial gave too much info to absorb. It should have been clear and concise on the things as they happen. Like, for example, picking up an upgrade. It just says, this is permanent. It would have helped the player understand better what they're doing early on, especially for those who have troubles with long tutorials and forget details. Learning on the job, as they say. But the upgrade system is a really cool touch.
I wish I understood it sooner than later, because you can carry 3 weapons at a time. And the 3 that I ended up being comfortable with was the rocket launcher, heavy machine gun and assault rifle. There were times where a sniper rifle was good, but then I realized on the AR mode, a heavy machine gun is one of the most deadly weapons in the whole game. That was my personal choice anyway. A sniper rifle is really good, but you only get 10 bullets. And most of the battles are mid-range instead of long distance. A heavy machine gun covers all types of battle. Some of these weapons are really creative, like the disc launcher or the lock-on laser. Like I said, I found the weapons that I was most comfortable with, and they might not have been the best for everybody in every battle, but I found that the lock-on laser can be pretty weak. The rocket launcher just dominates. The disc launcher, I was feeling like I was Krillin against Frieza. It looked cool, it sounded cool, but I felt like it was pretty weak. Maybe after a few upgrades it would have been better, but my favourite 3 weapons, the standard versions of them were good too. And I love the way the weapons change. They'll break apart and transform into the one you've selected. The game did explain this in one of the cutscenes, but this detail is only something you would have really noticed in cover. And the game just don't want you to cover.
We're still working on expanding the number of configurations stored in memory. You can't just scan whatever you want and have it work.
This thing is even picking up surface scratches.
Blade can only replicate what already exists, even the imperfections.
There's also another way to upgrade your weapons. If you pick up the same weapon you have while your current weapon is at full ammo capacity, instead of it giving you ammo, it will give you an additional weapon upgrade. This was also shown in the intro, but there was so much to learn, this was just another detail that I missed. I almost want to play this game again, upgrading without changing any of the weapons, but I'm not really a player who goes back to visit the same game I've just played, unless there's a big reason for it. Maybe if there was a second character I'd go back and play it, but there's not. I would like to know what it's like to play this game without changing any weapons from the beginning, to know what the most powerful weapon was.
Also, some of the other weapons that I didn't use. There might have been a lot of potential that I didn't see, but the fact that the longer you keep one single weapon, the stronger it gets was further proof to me that I should stick with one weapon as long as possible. Even if it's just a standard weapon like the assault rifle, it can eventually become super powered if you stick with it. The same thing could have applied to some of the others, but my playstyle just suited these ones more. The game is really good at subtly telling you what to do. It rewards you in its own way of rewarding you and punishes you in its own way too. Sometimes you don't realize exactly how. This game is so well developed, it handholds you with a ghost hand. The free weapon system the game has is called Blade. You can additionally hold two grenades, the EMP and the regular grenade. By pressing left on the D-pad you can switch out those two. Up, right and down chooses your other three main weapons. The heavy machine gun and assault rifle have the most standard weapon ammunition, which was another reason why they defaulted on my favourites. The lock-on laser is great for an open battlefield with a lot of enemies. Not so effective on bosses as it makes you feel like it is. You have a false sense of power with the explosions it lets off. The LFE gun goes through objects, but it's really slow. And another one that's not good for bosses, especially long distance because it doesn't go very far. The shotgun in a shooter is always my favourite weapon to go to, but here most battles are so fast and further away, close combat is just not the one. EMP is great, it stuns a lot of people, very effective in a pinch. But the grenades bounce around a lot, it's like throwing a rugby ball. It would be nice if they had more creative names for some of their guns. Ones that would fit the suit or the blade system more. Considering all the weapons transform from one another with the blade system, they could have just called it something like Blade Slug for the type of bullet you're shooting, or like Blade 9mm. Make it all related to the suit within the game. Also, the rocket launcher was very useful for big bosses, and this game has a lot of big bosses. More than Metal Gear Solid. For those who don't get that reference, I'm not necessarily talking about the Metal Gear. The first boss fight you have is against this thing called Argus. It's like a 50-foot mechanical spider that shoots out rockets and will fire out a blast from its nose. To defeat these, you have to shoot the legs to down it, then shoot its eye. After you defeat it, it shoots out hundreds of rockets all over the place. It's a really intense battle, and it's quite intimidating that you fight it so early in the game. But you are on a platform that goes around it, and you're joined by a lot of soldiers, so you feel more than equipped. But after it shoots all its rockets out and you think you've defeated it, it will then stand on its feet like a human. But this version is way more deadly, it's more accurate with its death blow. This boss is a challenge, and the game will constantly up itself. Everything it does that's grand, it goes even more grandiose on the next stage. Visually, this is an undoubtedly beautiful game that still holds up. The environments are all futuristic looking and familiar, so apart from it being aesthetically pleasing to look at, you won't catch yourself gazing into the distance like you would on other AAA games because it's just stuff you're looking at.
I just noticed something. Are we living on a ring? Or is this some sort of Halo?
The gameplay never gets boring because it's fast-paced, action-packed and exciting. Every instance has something intriguing going on. The bosses do get repeated a lot, and the bigger they get, the more basic they are to defeat. But due to the gameplay being extremely fun, you'll have a good time the whole way through. The box art to Vanquish is one of the only games to perfectly capture everything there is to love about the game. The rocket sliding mechanic, the weapons, the futuristic mechs, the colour blue and a whole lot of motion blur. And other games, these exact same things would be annoying or generic, but here it works. It just works. Occasionally you'll have to do some button mashing or QTE. There's this part where you have to run super fast by mashing X and the character runs across the top of a roof, then jumps off onto a moving vehicle that's going through the air. Then he lands on the front of another vehicle. The guy looks at him like, oh no, my day is ruined. Also, when you're fighting against an Argus core, when you shoot one of their arms down, it will try and attack you, then your character will run up its body, jump all the way in the air to start doing some spin attack towards it, and you'll have to dodge bullets it's shooting out of its hand. He grabs one of them bullets and throws it back into it, jumps inside of its arm with it, and bursts out the front like an alien chest burster. Another one, your character will be attacked by it, but he'll grab its arm, and you have to shoot it while it's charging up its shot to get you. You'll jump high up in the air and do a drill spin attack into the top of its head, spinning so fast like a dentist's drill into a tooth, giving his whole body a root canal. There's things like this in the game where it's extremely creative creative and just shows how flamboyant the game can be. They're not scared to show the silly side of things, not taking itself too seriously is a good thing. The game won a lot of awards in 2010. After Nier Automata and the Bayonetta series, it's done really well for the company in terms of awards, and it's easy to see that this is mainly down to the gameplay aspect. That's how good it is. The OST does complement the style and futuristic aesthetic and mech style, but it's just a bunch of bouncy techno beats that keep you engaged during battle. It makes you want to hold that trigger shooting bullets and keeping your jets on. But I won't be checking out a playlist to feel nostalgia from the soundtrack anytime soon. These guys are enjoying the soundtrack a bit too much. Well, you know what they say, party like no one's watching, but you also know what they say. Don't turn your back on an enemy because, who the hell is, what are you doing here? The story goes like this. Everyone's just chilling, going out for a nice stroll. Then one day, an intergalactic space nation attacked. I'm joking. It reminded me of Homefront and Metro. A bunch of stuff happened that sort of resemble an alternate reality based on historical events at the time. A lot of games made that choice in their story during the Xbox 360 and PS3 era, as you can tell. It does put a spin on it with the old switcheroo, but it's not quite an M. Night Shyamalan. It's one game that I've always thought about because the gameplay is phenomenal. It doesn't reinvent the wheel in terms of story. Visually it is great, but I feel like space and mech, all that type of stuff is quite easy to get right a lot of the time. I have to praise the things it thought outside of the box for. This AR system could have been just a generic bullet time thing, but they decided to implement it in different ways. Having this near-death experience automatically trigger, it sort of creates a fluctuating difficulty. It does sort of make it lean more on the easy side overall, but when you start getting big-headed, the game will give you a rude awakening. The fact that the majority of the time you're fighting mechs means you might have to get up close and personal and creative with the way you defeat enemies. This ain't just a generic bullet time third-person shooter, like with Resident Evil 4. We've seen what the guy behind this game has done before, and the way he's previously innovated things. The gameplay has a lot of innovation here. So many original, unique concepts. It's taken a thing like bullet time and made it into this whole energy system. It's an underrated classic that didn't get the credit it deserved on its gameplay. It's got a pretty cool ending which is unique and original in its own right. If only Smash Brothers didn't do it before that, which was inspired by Star Fox, which was inspired by Die Hard on the PS1. And don't you dare check the dates because it checks out.
President JonTron, I've nearly destroyed all of the asteroids, but before I do, can you tell me what year it is? Also, what war we're fighting? And can you tell everyone I saved the world? I don't want you doing one of your silly pranks and claiming credit.
I did it. I saved the world.
Damn you to hell, JonTron!